Hello, welcome to episode 23 of Mystic Revolution. And Susana and I are excited to speak with you even more about the great work this time. But first, you know it, a little meditation. Just let's get here. So notice your body, notice what you're seeing out your eyes right in this moment, besides the screen. And then if you'd like, you can close your eyes and tune into your inner world. And let's pull our attention and energy inside our own skin, out from the day. And let's also let go like sand in our hands of what we're done with, and just let that drop. Let the sand drop out of your hands, drop out of your body. What's not now? What's past? What's future? What's not you? Making space for rest. Making space for new ideas to play with. New ways of being to entertain. Good, and let's take a deep breath and release it. And you're welcome to stay meditating while we chat, or if you'd like, you can start to open your eyes, be with the world, and look at wonderful Susana and wonderful Wendy as we say hi. And
hi.
Good. So
Hi.
let's go, Susana. What do you
Get
want to
back in
say
it. So
today?
yeah, so last episode, we were getting into the last stage of the great work, or the alchemical process, Rubedo, and it is the reddening. I like to think of it as like the life force, the blood, the vital force energy, right? Really coming into fruition. And as we talked about, the phoenix is associated with, the rose is associated with that. And I mean, from our tradition as mystics as well, I mean, the rose has a lot of symbology attached to it.
Yes.
But when we left off, I just shared a little bit about what that felt like for me most recently. And I wanted to hear about that experience for you. I mean, recently or throughout your life. I mean, please, do you mind sharing?
Sure. About what it's like to come to that part where I finally get to rise.
Yeah, we finally get to rise.
Yeah, and there's been times for me where there's just these short things, in Christianity we call it like dying daily, these little things of letting go and allowing new, and then there's the big ones. And I think I've said before, like when I was in the dark night of the soul, um, year after year, Easter would come, and I'd be just like, maybe this year I'll open with the spring.
Mm.
I'll rise with the spring. And year after a decade, that didn't happen. And then one Easter, it really did happen. Funny enough, right along with the liturgical year, it like happened for me. And for me, like I talked, I think last time about that letting go that I needed to do, that stopping, resisting. And then what happened was, first there was all this space that hadn't been there before. Like we talked last time about how when I let go, there was all this new freedom, there was space. There was just
Yeah,
space
the
where there
space.
hadn't been. And there was ease where there'd been just all this suffering, all this like tremendous overwhelm. There was just space, and that happened. And then it was like the next day, like there was just a day, like, or half a day, where it was just like, oh my goodness, all the horrible stuff isn't here.
Yeah.
Which is, that's enough. That's enough. But then like the light started coming, and it was orgasmic. It was, unbelievable amounts of light could come in. I'd experienced for like lots of light in the past, but it was just a whole nother thing,
Another
whole
level.
another
Yeah.
a level, and just ecstasy
Mm,
for a few days. You just ecstasy was there. And then after that, like I'd had a lot of challenge in my life, or growing up was bullshit, and just a lot of challenge. And then, dark night of the senses, darkness, there was just a lot. And it was very hard for me to stay mastering my energy. I had to like trade with people all the time and get back on the horse and get back on the horse of being in charge of myself, and um, really do my inner work a lot to stay in high vibration and in the light. And then
yeah.
after that, it just is always there. The light is always there. And I sometimes don't notice it, but all I have to do is notice it. And it's just right there. Like I don't need anybody to help me. Don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything. Like sometimes just it helps. Like sometimes if I'm in a scenario where it's like woohoo, but it's always like the party is always going on. And I on the inside. And sometimes you still have to make dinner while the party's going on, but I can tune into the party. So it's just been for me, coming out of that dark night after so many decades was just a whole different experience. And
Right.
there was
Yeah.
there was a few days of just like, holy moly, this is truly a new world. And some of the patterns that were there in my system, like extreme PTSD that I'd had, that I'd worked, and it wasn't driving me, but it was still there. It
Yeah.
was just gone, just truly gone.
Yeah.
Um, so that suffering. So anyway, there's lots of stories like this, but like that's a big one, and it's just extraordinary.
Do you feel like there was one thing that really catalyzed that last bit for you, or it was just time because you'd been doing this for so long? Or what was the
I
if
have
you
no answer. It was grace. It was
mm,
like for the millionth time I was letting go. For the millionth time I was being with. For the millionth time. But as I said last time, I wasn't sure. I didn't really understand that behind all that letting go was judgment.
right.
It shouldn't be this way. There was just it was just the final straw, of my no to what is.
Wow, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I imagine there are a few people watching this that can relate to part of Wendy's story, if not all of it. Um, and I know that in getting to that sort of last, right, there's still more cycles,
I know.
and every stage of it, you were going through this regenerative cycle,
Yeah.
and so, but now you're living more in the land of the phoenix,
Yeah.
the beautiful blossoming rose, right? The rubedo signifies the end of the alchemical process, the fruition that brings us gold, right?
Yeah.
And um, one of the other metaphors or symbols of this is the idea of the unification, the great marriage. Um, in some of the alchemical texts, you'll see like the coming together of the king and queen, the masculine, the feminine. Um, Sometimes it's even the ultimate representation of it is actually like a body that is genderless or possesses all the things that we associate with these bodies. This is happening in oneself, right?
Yes.
And I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
If people are getting caught on words like masculine and feminine, and can you speak about a little bit about that, the idea of that in your own experience, like what it meant for you and your own sort of I'll say self-evolution, but also just allowing yourself to fully be who you are. Let's say that.
Like around gender or around the male and female energies?
All of it.
Well, I thought that I understood male energy when I went in, that turn I just talked about. I thought I understood male energy, and I did to a certain point. But I'd spent many years practicing letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. And this is the practice that a lot of religions and spiritual practices are into. It's like, let me follow God, or let me follow Jesus, or let me let go and let God. Let me be receptive to the divine experience or will or whatever. There's a lot of this. And after I made the turn, I realized that I did not have the muscle of the male energy to get out of the upside. And that was huge for me. It was like, wait a minute, I've like been dedicated to my walk with God since I'm a teenager, and I've been delving deep into Christianity, but other religions, other practices, deep into the mystic practice you and I do, and I didn't have what I needed to come out. And it took me a long time to develop it. And I will say I was exceptionally hobbled by this because of my nature, how I naturally am, and my nurture, which was not very nurturing, and squelched my male energy. So like I came into it hobbled, I will own that. But like I feel now, looking back at it, I have something that's a little uncomfortable to say, but I'll say it, which is what I've noticed, seems to me, is that the religions and spiritual practices are been primarily made by cisgendered men for just cisgendered men. And yes, there's some cisgendered men who have more feminine energy and this and that. But in general, what male-bodied people need to learn is letting go. But they know all about go, do, have, take, break through, right? Right? And a lot of cisgendered women know all about letting go, following, leading, following. Know all about following. It's easy. It's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier. We get it. And it's very uncomfortable to have this conversation, even because like we're all different, right? But I'm just talking the general paradigms.
Yeah.
And the energy, I'm not talking about, I'm just saying the energy. And so I feel like there's something missing for a lot of female identified people in the training that we're encouraged and the paradigms that we're encouraged in. Because there comes to what I've realized, what I've understood is that there's times that I need to get up and out. And once I learned male energy, once I got it, which took way longer than I want to talk about, but once I got it, it was like, I'll give you the pictures. It was like I couldn't climb I like would try to climb the wall and I couldn't, and I'd slide down and I'd slide down. But once I got it, the male energy it was like Spider-Man. It was like, okay, do. No big deal. Fun and easy. It's like, it's not about effort. It's just letting that energy go like this. And the other picture is elevator. Yes, I have to press, down here at the bottom, I press the elevator button, the elevator opens, I have to get in, to close it, I have to press the button, like I have to choose, but the elevator just goes to the top. that's male energy, and I couldn't access it, and then I could, and when I could, then I could go on in my journey. So I feel like this is just a really important thing, and I know that in the Great Marriage we own the two sides, right? So I had to own this side, and so part of me learning it is I developed a relationship with Mars, the god of war, the planet
Yeah.
person, right, which really helped me integrate that full out, unstoppable male energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Driving, active, powerful. I mean, all of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your sharing that. And I think, and these imbalances can happen in us
Hmm.
in a variety of different ways. Um, no matter how you gender identify.
Yes.
And when we think of it as active and receptive,
Yes.
I think that that can be helpful. And Mars certainly like active, and
Full
whatever,
on active.
full on, right? I mean, that's the planet of war, or the god of war, right? So like take it to its extreme.
Yeah.
Um, and some of us need that level of intensity to tend
For
to
sure.
all the stuff that's going on inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you relate to this conversation, Susanna?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I did unintentionally is that my imbalance ended up taking on a lot more of that active driving, doing out there energy to compensate for the beaten down woundedness
Hmm.
part of me. And also, right, I mean, I've worked in in the business world, in the technology world. I mean, both of us are entrepreneurs, and that takes a level of that, but I really, really got into that energy, and it served me.
Yeah.
It served me until it didn't serve me, until it fried my system,
Right.
until it made me sick, because I wasn't tending to the softer parts, the receptive part. I wasn't allowing the more creative, nurturing part of myself to have space. And so allowing allowing that part to be more present. And for me, that brought on a lot of shame. I mean,
Mm.
being a female in a female body brought on a lot of um, shame.
Yeah.
Um, and but right, we're talking about alchemy, and we're talking about energy, and we start to learn and discern what's really going on. Like, why are these things um, being squashed? Why are these things? Why have I hidden those things? Why am I giving more attention to this kind of activity and belief system and way of operating in the world? Like, what's going on here? And right, the tools that we know, the practice that we know, you can tend to it, and you can start tending to it pretty easy. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
that's how I found this, right? My masculine energy had gone into overdrive. I was
Hmm.
freaking highly sensitive. I wasn't tending to it, and my body
Mm.
completely short-circuited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think I talked about the seizure disorder that I had, and that was
Hmm.
because of this imbalance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this unification that you had, this coming together that you have, and that we can all have, right? And again, all of this will show up differently in every different person. You'll have different words for it, different labels for it. These are just, right? Like ways for us
Right.
to talk about it here. And again, we're going to put some links down below that about the great work in the alchemical process and all the things we're talking about.
Hmm. I think this might be a good time for a break.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey everyone, just a friendly reminder that on the first Tuesday of every month, we hold a Mystic Revolution meditation, and you're invited. Just go to our website and you'll find the link. We look forward to seeing you then.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Welcome back to Mystic Revolution. And we're talking about the great marriage in this episode. So, Susanna.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, so the great marriage, the great coming together of ourselves within ourselves. And it makes me think of all the, sometimes you see on social media, people marrying themselves in an outward way, which I think is lovely. And it's the intentional embodiment of that within ourselves and what that can mean. And so you talked about this point in your life where like something really shifted.
Yeah.
And there was this lightness of being that came in. And I know that you do things to tend to it, to keep it there, but I'd like to hear about that, right? Like, I know there's you come to a place where, okay, this is more my default place,
Yes.
but I'll stop talking and let you talk about your own experience. How about that?
I think at first I had, more official spiritual practices. I was doing the kind of meditation that you and I share. I was doing Qigong. I was doing, because body care was a very important part of that shift.
Mhm.
I want to say that things that took a while to explicate, but really have is when I brought in more male energy and balanced it with the receptivity, more activeness, some things that naturally happened. I naturally started having better boundaries. Like, yeah, I know, like there's the physical how to have boundaries, but first it's, can I have boundaries? I might have mentioned that when I was young, my first real job, they sent me off to assertiveness training. I think I've talked about this in the past.
Oh,
And they sent me off to assertiveness training because I was young and I was having to manage women who were like my mom's age and older, and it was weird. But I could have taught the classes. I knew what assertiveness was. I knew how to do it, but I wasn't being it.
yeah.
I couldn't be it. And then, so that's where after this shift, like I became assertiveness, I became boundaries, I became power, I became will, I became owning my space. Like I became it. And so then the tools that I had to do that just became easy and natural. And I'll say, like the last time I went back to my like hometown with the people I've known since I'm little, like for the first time, this past time, I got like bunches of feedback from people of like that I'm being different, and that wasn't all like happy because I was being boundaries. I was having boundaries.
Yeah.
I was being like, let's get this job done. And they're used to me being like all kinds of supportive and, listening. And it's just like, we have 5 minutes. Can we finish this job? Then we can talk.
Yeah.
Not mean or rude, but definitely different. So, like, is that the kind of thing you're talking about that you
Yeah,
want to hear about?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then from you know, and all of this is mystical, but when you think about it from a mystical perspective and the things that now you notice more or you work with, I'm talking like the vibration of things, the energies that are in your space now more.
Yeah. Well, in my own experience of myself, like I said, like I kept falling into darkness and heaviness and suffering. And one of the things that happened after that is I still had some of those habits to work out. And it was really interesting. First of all, my life so changed, like everything changed, where I lived, what I did, like my life completely transformed after that,
Yeah.
by the way. But also, I just happened to be hiking there the other day. I was visiting in North Carolina, and I had this revelation on Christmas. I was on my own for Christmas, and I went for this 2-hour hike in this beautiful place that I love, which I was there last week. And I had this, like, I mean, seriously, like seeing how it all works through the multiverse kind of thing. It was a huge transition of understanding of what's going on around here.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to, I take a long time. It took me a long time to integrate. It took me over a year. And after a year, I was starting to be like, what is wrong with you? That you have, I hadn't shifted my whole model. I hadn't become it completely.
Yes.
And I was on my case a little bit.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, I'm suffering about this. And when I realized I was suffering, that's where I developed, oh, then let go. And as soon as I did that, then the integration just went, choo, 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 and I was integrated. It was the suffering and the resistance of having not integrated it is what was in the way of just being uh, really a whole different person around how big the world is and how important we are as part of the evolution of everything,
Of everything. Yeah.
of
And so
me, all the way up through the multiverses.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I mean, I think, I talked a little bit about the idea of being full on you, and it is in day-to-day life for sure, but it is bigger than that.
Yes.
And the awareness of the multidimensionality of you, of the world, and of the intertwining of all the things. And I mean, this is a whole other show we will speak to, I'm sure, but that how we operate in the world does matter.
Yes.
And when we can use this framework or this metaphor of the great work to help us map ourselves where we are and understand that in each phase it is temporary, and that as we go through the cycles we can elevate, expand, become more of who we are. It's not just more of our personality or more of our confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's an actualization and an activation of the soul senses in a bigger way. And as Wendy was speaking to, this visioning,
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And
And being the
so,
light, just being the
uh,
light.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this isn't, right. We all have free will. We all get to do what we want with our lives. We really do. So this is not any judgment on anyone who doesn't want to do this or doesn't think this way. I mean, that's the beauty of it. We all get to.
Yeah.
And if feels interesting to people, or you're noticing these things in your own life, that you can dial deeper into it, and they can be super helpful
Yeah.
in feeling better and getting unstuck and tending to some of the really hard stuff about being a human.
Yes. Yes. About, I don't know, let's say 10 years ago, a friend of mine said to me, like, isn't that enough, Wendy? Haven't you like healed enough? Haven't you like grown enough? Like, when's it going to be enough? she was, I don't know, she was on it with me. It was like, like, what do you care? But she was just like, isn't that enough? And I was just like, no, it's no. Maybe it was more like 20 years ago, because for me, what we're talking about with this great work, or I'm really into the putting on the mind of Christ, this whole idea that we're in this incredible evolution that affects my life and what it's like to be me and everyone around me, but also I'm part of the tipping point of humans, of this earth, of this universe. More of us are over here, then the tipping point happens and the world is new. And I'm just like, it's all teleos, individual and shared. It's all becoming our selves.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, F no. Like, I'm never going to stop this. And I'm not like compulsive. I'm not like, there's nothing wrong, but like, why would I stop opening to the universe?
Well, and healing, I mean, it is healing, but really it's an adventure. It's a curiosity, right? It's curious. It's a journey. I mean, that's the way I think about it. It's just has allowed me to be a little bit more thoughtful about my journey. And my journey isn't measured by my outside accomplishments.
Yeah.
For me anyway, by the way.
Right.
Or these things that we are told should measure how far along we are. It's
Right.
not that at all. And it's the journey of opening our consciousness, of expanded consciousness, and experiencing more of who we are as individuals, but who we are collectively, in the world, in the universe, and all of that. Yeah.
How exciting.
So, right, the great work, the culmination of the great work.
Yes. So wonderful.
And yeah, I mean, there's more we could talk about on this, but we're going to provide some links so that you can explore a little bit more. And we may revisit this topic again at some time. And of course, if you have questions or want to engage in conversation on our different pages, please do.
Yeah.
Or send us an email, whatever. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Susana, for sharing your perspective on this.
Well,
it
thanks
brings
for
a whole
sharing
different
yours.
conversation. Okay, friends, thanks so much for coming, and let's just do a little meditation and be here. And if you'd like, you can tune into your inner world. And if you'd like, you can notice a beautiful golden sun above your head, maybe at the ceiling, out of your space, opening to the transcendent light. Let's ask our whole soul to open like a rose or a lotus in our space, opening to the light. That's what we're talking about a lot today. We're just coming to full blossom. Good. And then you can do this anywhere in your space, but let's ask your heart to do the same thing. Let's ask your heart to open as the light, the immanent experience of the divine. And the light opens like a sun or like a flower. There is so much magnificence. Feel free to stay in this place. And I'm going to open my eyes and say goodbye to you all, and say goodbye to Susana. Thank you all so much for playing.
Thank you. See you next time.
And that concludes this portion of Mystic Revolution. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to get notified of new content. And don't forget to like and share. Join the Mystic Revolution. Click on the link in the description to get more information, or visit themysticrevolution.com. Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
the idea of what we're talking about, I know that there are people that are thinking this way all over the world. And when we can find them and unite with them, wow, it can make such a difference.